Okay, welcome to Cleveland Heights City Council Committee of the Whole meeting. It's May 19th, 2025, and it is 6:01 p.m. Addie, would you call the roll?
Cobb.
Here.
Kuda.
Here.
Petrus.
Here.
Larson. Here. Maddox.
Here.
Russell. Here. Bosch.
All right, we're gonna go, we're gonna stick with the 1 minute rule. We're gonna go right into legislative review. We got an executive session coming up, just so everybody knows, in a little bit, and then we have 3 or 4 more items on the agenda.
Thank you.
So, let's see. I'm gonna start with first readings for consideration. Oh, and I wanna add, to the legislative review, I want to add the resolution to this, just so everybody knows. We'll talk about this as well. But we'll start with first readings for consideration for adoption. 089, 2025, this is reappointing Terry Saylor.
Before you get this, a question I was just saying, is that online already?
It is not,
Okay.
because it's a draft,
Okay.
you know? Okay.
Okay.
And this is a resolution reappointing Terry Saylor as an alternate member to the Architectural Board of Review. Okay, 90, 2025, a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Bobcat of Akron through the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Program. Anything on that? It's kind of a tractor with a cab on it that does like all kind of multiple functions.
It is budgeted.
And it is budgeted. Welcome, Mr. Law Director. We're on the third item of first readings. This is 092, 2025, resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Judco Truck Equipment, the acquisition of a 12-foot stainless steel dump body, salt spreader, and plow package. Feel like, you know, you're on The Price is Right and they're showing you. Any questions on that? 92. And then 93 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Rush Truck Centers for the acquisition of internal single axle cab. And this is also for Public Works and is also budgeted for.
Through the ODOT Cooperative Purchasing Program, the Department of Administrative Services Cooperative Program.
Thank you, Mr. Hanna. So 94 and 95 are both with the GDP group. They're both for engineer designs. One's for Mount Laurel Road. The other is for the extension to Blanche Avenue. Mr. Law Director, is that where the new construction is happening? The new home construction?
I think that's the longer term expectation, yeah.
I see.
But the roadway, as the memo calls out, is already platted. It just has never been built.
I'm not sure if it's here that could answer my question, but anybody have any questions on?
I do.
Yeah, please.
Is there some urgency to vote on this tonight?
I think it's, oh, you know what, maybe they were. I don't know. You guys
Yes,
know?
I mean, so I guess, well, certainly council can decide not to vote on it tonight, but at the end of the day, having the engineer complete, you know, provides a better opportunity for this project if we're moving forward to do so this year. I think we're running out of calendar to get the engineering done and put it out to bid.
And here's, if I may, here's my concern about this, that I don't know that there's been adequate notice and discussion about what this is the prelude to doing. It was placed on the budget, I want to say back in 2023 without a lot of discussion. And then last year we had some residents that came to one of the meetings concerned about the development and the finish of this roadway. And I just think we need to be more public about it so we're not accused again of doing something without soliciting community input. Because this is gonna be a major transformation for this neighborhood.
I remember that.
Go ahead.
If I may, moving forward with the engineering does not commit the city to going forward with the project. And it probably gives better information to discuss with the community what could possibly happen. It's hard to say and have that conversation when you don't know what the engineering and the road design would look like.
I was just gonna ask, next meeting is June 2nd,
Yes.
is that right? Is that, is starting out with the contract with GPD at that point or from and after that point problematic for the project?
For GPD, they sort of have a window that's kind of right now to have manpower to get on the project right now, and that may or may not be the case if this is delayed another 2 weeks to a month. They were kind of hoping to get started earlier than this.
Residents shared with me a letter that they received from GPD, so it's great that they took that step to inform folks. Do we happen to know whether there was any other communication with folks in the area?
And that was likely in regards to then they did a survey, provided the notice to all the property owners that are along that paper right of way. To be able to complete that survey. Yeah,
A little while.
yeah, it would have been at the beginning of this year, I believe. You know, beyond that, I'm not sure, again, there's been in previous years, mention of this project, there was the announcement of the federal funding that we've received, you know, for the project, so. You know, this was sort of, again, the next step to determine what that project, you know, potentially could look like.
My question is kind of more of a 30,000-foot question. And it is a question I've asked before, probably better for the mayor than anybody in the room, but we'll see. But I had brought up why having a staff engineer versus hiring consultants every time we have an engineering project. And, you know, when you add this up, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I don't know what a staff engineer would make. I would guess probably less than just this one contract. So my question is this the right path to go down as a policy? I mean, maybe this isn't the greatest moment, but just because these two pieces of legislation both are about engineering contracts, is there anybody that wants to address that? I don't know who to call on first.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just say that I think that's a legitimate policy question and decision and discussion for the city council and administration to have. But I would also say that in my experience working with other communities, even with, especially if you have one engineer, most of the engineering work for significant projects is gonna end up being outsourced anyway, because it's really a significant undertaking to take on some of these big projects. Imagine, for example, some of the Wade Trim projects for, you know, large swatches of the city, you know, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars at a pop, and a single person in an office in City Hall is not gonna be able to do that. You might be able to build an office that could do that, but then you're looking at more expenses, and I think they're still gonna end up outsourcing is my guess. And then finally, you know, what you could see though is additional control in-house. I think there are some benefits. You could have somebody to sort of day-to-day watch the engineering, watch the projects, work with capital projects folks in City Hall, manage the preparation of specifications to go out to bid, and things like that. I think there are certainly benefits that the city might realize.
I mean, I don't know enough about it, but my thought was even if we were outsourcing for big projects, it seems like a staff engineer would cut down on what those contracts might be. I mean, that's just a logical thought. Go ahead.
Just to go along with the municipalities, what you see in many cases is that staff engineer, number one, it is a capacity issue, but in some cases, at least in my experience, you see them taking over more of a project director type of role as they're dealing with the different engineering contractors. So it essentially, I'm wondering if maybe it's not an engineer that we need in-house, or maybe there is, but in addition to that, maybe a project type of manager or project director role. I'm looking over here at my counterpart as well.
Yeah.
Because we both understand that any major project you're gonna have, you have someone in hands in-house who can at least see those outside projects, it's gonna make things a little bit more tighter. So just a suggestion, but you tend to see that.
No, I appreciate that, and we probably shouldn't spend too much time on this particular, my topic, because I wanna go back to Councilman Cobb. Where are we on this? I mean, we have to decide if we're gonna vote today or vote.
I'm gonna vote yes. I'm hesitant to do so. Again, like I said, we've got to do a better job of highlighting when we're making major property changes. And then I just have one other question. It says here that it's anticipated that the federal allocation from the award that we received will reimburse the design costs. Do we actually have that money sitting in our bank account, or do we have to apply to the federal government for that reimbursement? And if so, are we confident that that money is still there?
Director Zamp has been more hands-on with that, but what has been discussed is that we've confirmed that money is available to us. And frankly, we need something like this to encumber those funds and start to bring drawdown.
And it is a reimbursement
Correct.
basis. It's as expenditures are incurred, the reimbursement is made.
And so you can say with not 100% certainty, but you can assure us that this money is not going to be clawed back.
As you might imagine, I can't assure you of that. But I do think that Director Zamp has been the most hands-on with that, and to my knowledge, there's been no indication that that risk is present currently.
If anything, they've been sort of coming to us saying, when are you ready to start spending this money?
Yeah, go ahead.
Quick question. Were there any federal dollars put towards that particular project at all? Put your hands on any part of Blanche? Grants?
You mean,
I mean, there's $850,000.
I thought it was.
I mean, outside of that,
Oh.
there's nothing else, right?
Not that I know of.
yes,
I'm sorry, I
yes,
should clarify
Yeah.
that, sorry.
correct.
Not that I know of.
All right,
Hey,
so,
sorry, and I'm for tonight.
okay.
And, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
There is toward the end of the beginning of the memo, it talks about the fact that $850,000 federal funding would go toward the overall project cost, but what remains then would be recovered by the city from assessments against the benefited properties. Because the city can't constitutionally spend funds to benefit a private residential development.
I see. We're okay with going forward? Sorry, but you brought it up, that's.
I'm gonna vote yes, but any further yes votes on anything having to do with this project, we need to hold a public hearing and let people know what the plan is.
I agree.
And somehow, and I say this to Addie all the time, we just gotta get legislation sooner because there's just too much stuff that's for first reading for passage. It's just, they just gotta be more organized, look ahead if, like right now, I'm just telling the directors in the room, I mean, if something's not on June 2nd, because we're not meeting in July. So, I hope that everything's in, because we, the Council Vice President Russell and I are meeting with the law director on Thursday, and that's when we're supposed to, that's when we're planning the June 2nd meeting. And if it's something that needs two readings, hopefully that happens. Okay, I'm gonna move on. 96, 2025. This is $60,000 for the Juneteenth celebration.
Mr. President,
Yes.
just thank you for adding this to the agenda. I know we initially scheduled a committee meeting to discuss this. Last minute there was some schedule issues there, but the staff is here to discuss it today. And hopefully we can get any questions that council has answered to your satisfaction. But absolutely looking forward to the event. I'm excited about the organization and partnering with the city to do it, but we want to.
Okay, thank you for that. Questions about this, Councilwoman Larson?
Totally pronounce the name of the organization.
Japo.
Thank you.
From the memo from Jessica Shantz, Director of Communication to Council, which was dated May 16th, which just last Friday. The event is 1 month away and it'd be beneficial to start allocating funds to fulfill vendor and performer purchase orders. It's absolutely necessary to pay the lead vendor, Japo, who is responsible for securing all the programming, end quote. I'm wondering why we got this now, and it's obvious they've done a lot of work because we've been advertising and promoting it for quite a while. So how did this happen backwards?
Good question.
I respect that and understand that question. One thing I wanna make clear is that we no longer at this time have a special events coordinator. And so the Parks and Rec Department and the Comms Department have since at this time absorbed the responsibility. So we've been working collectively to plan both the two big events in June, Juneteenth and Pride that feel especially representative of the values of our community and also in this political climate feel important to put on a grand and celebratory show. We have partnered with JAPO in the past through the last two Black History Months. They have done a beautiful job and they are professionals at this. When Talise Campbell of JAPO, we understood that she was available to potentially curate this show as well, given again, the fact that we are not currently paying a special events coordinator and given that we also have immense other responsibilities, we welcomed the opportunity. We also recognize that the cost, while on paper looks extreme potentially, when we went back and forth quite a bit, doing the math ourselves, trying to kind of figure out what we could account for. We recognized that it would to put on an event in keeping with the vision would be much more than $60,000 and would be beyond the capacity of our staff to manage. The other, I think, positive about or I guess maybe another way of justifying or understanding the cost is that this is the first year that we're putting it on at King Park, which has just gotten some incredible upgrades. And we are excited that both Juneteenth and Pride will be at King Park this year. We think it's an opportunity to showcase the incredible audio-visual equipment that's coming up. We think it's important that part of the plan is to potentially shepherd people back and forth between King Park and the Cedar Lee Business District as opposed to shuttle them here as a way of encouraging people to utilize that district that's been hit by the fire. And we are soliciting at no cost to us, local vendors to serve food. So it has the capacity to be an incredible economic boon to our larger community. Yes, please.
Just to, in addition to that, just to see the amount of money in terms of why it's grown, it's because it started out, at the community center and continued to shift to Forest Hills and now at King Park. So you're seeing that increased investment every year as they're going through just to add.
And to be clear, I'm not concerned about the cost. I mean, that sounds, from a fiscal standpoint, irresponsible. I'm concerned about the fact that this agreement you've been working on it for a while. And so my question to you is also about logistics for Director Hairston. Will JAPO be paying the vendors, the musicians, the dancers out of the money that they're given, or will they be billing Director Hairston and the finance department?
Part of the benefit of this agreement with JAPO is that we work through them to manage all of the logistics. And again, so much of that cost that $60,000 cost means that it will not come back to us, right? So again, because of the logistics of it, given that we are doing our very best to plan both events, we want to put on excellent events. We think that this is really critical. Recognizing what JAPO could offer us in terms of the planning of it. seemed reasonable.
Thank you. And one more question, which fund account will it come out of? The expenditure?
There's been discussion, or can you talk, there is an events budget, I should say, that was more connected to sort of in between Parks and Rec, so I'm new to that conversation,
There's a
Yeah.
special events budget that the funds will be funding.
Thank you.
And I believe it's already laid out in that for those events.
Okay. Councilman Cobb?
All right, I got some questions. First, I don't recall any discussion about an event of this magnitude during budgeting.
Correct.
What is the event budget amount
The event budget amount
Yeah.
for,
that's shared between the two departments?
Like the overall.
The
Yeah.
overall budget, event budget for the year for the city.
So the budget amount currently, if I'm not mistaken, was $50,000. And we were gonna be transferring from dollars from Parks and Rec and also from communications that we know that we both have into that fund in order to make this event happen.
So you're gonna be taking money from other funds to add to a current event budget fund of 50,000?
Correct.
How much do you anticipate the city will spend in total for this event, aside from this contract?
There will be some odds and ends like marketing, but we don't anticipate much outside of the 60. The 60,000 is going to be a big chunk of it. Now, also, what's going to happen, I want to bring up as well too, in a completely separate contract as well too, because we have to do a contract for a concert. There's going to be a nighttime concert as well too, and that's going to be a ticketed concert that we're gonna work on a contract with. That's also gonna be a revenue split between us and JAPO. So although it doesn't affect our expenditures for this year, we understand that we are showing that this event is going to bring in some money this year as well too. Hopefully that'll help for the future years. I understand that this won't affect us for this year, but we should be able to show that we should be able to bring in some money for the concert.
Do either of you know how many people attended the Juneteenth event last year at Forest Hills Park? Did we keep any numbers on that?
It's hard, neither of us were in our positions at that time, so I should get that for you.
Because I was there and looking around, I didn't do a head count, we had less people last year than we had the year before.
can I speak to that really briefly, just in terms of what the power that JAPO has to attract a wide audience? They would normally do an event like this over the course of like 3 days, usually at Playhouse Square on the west side, and so there's already a following for this event through JAPO.
Has JAPO ever put on an event of this magnitude before?
And to speak to that, yeah, across the city, in addition, there are nonprofit organizations and businesses backing up through JAPO for that. For example, there are mass church choirs coming together for a community choir as part of this celebration. And so there are outside organizations who are donating time and effort and volunteers to do those other things. And so that's why you're seeing so many activities, but JAPO is driving that. That's something they do on a regular basis.
Councilman, can I interject a question that's related to your question? Is JAPO doing any of the marketing?
Yes, there will be shared marketing.
Okay. Go ahead.
And much of the marketing can be done through our channels that already.
I understand we have
But
our
they
channels.
do have it on their social media, on their website. It's something we did also previously in our partnership events with them. Something I do with their social media person to make sure it's driving traffic. The city does a great job partnering with their social media team. So right now, even on IG, you'll see on JAPO stories, the executive director is pushing that through them as well. So everything that you see right now on social media through JAPO, you're gonna see a partnership also with the city of Cleveland Heights, because they're rolling up through Reels, IG, Facebook, and things like that to also drive that. But they're also sending out messages to other nonprofits, other faith institutions to make sure that they're aware of it, to drive that traffic as part of what they do.
Please continue.
Did we seek any sponsors to help to underwrite this event?
I would say that by the time the responsibility came to Director Gonzalez and I was potentially too late for that. I'm not sure that's fair to say necessarily, but it is certainly something we have talked about and thought about for next year.
Can you assure us that when this event is over, you'll provide this council a full and complete accounting of the money spent and the attendance? And this includes the concert and t-shirt sales? The food trucks that are envisioned to be there, are they paying a fee to participate?
They will pay a fee to participate.
And who will that fee go to?
That will go to the general fund, and I understand it's for Cape Park.
And for the vendors, are they paying a fee to have a booth?
They will, so as I understand it, and I've spoken to Law about this, no vendor can sell anything on our property without a fee, a nominal fee potentially, but a fee to the city because of our 501c3 status. So we can't have anybody sell something at the park unless we have charged them a fee. So there will be a concession fee for all vendors, be it they're selling goods or they're selling food.
And who will that fee go to?
So as I understand it, it will go to the general fund for Cape Park.
And will JAPO be conducting any activities that will be generating a fee for them?
During the day, no, but the contract with the ticketed event is separate, but in terms of the day event, no. They will not be generating any money for their organization.
And then for the concert, it's as you said, there's a sharing arrangement, and is there a contract in place for that?
That is currently under consideration.
So that's it.
Do we have a copy of the contract that's envisioned that we're gonna authorize the mayor to enter into?
We have a rough draft of it. It was sent over to the law department, so there is a rough draft of the actual contract itself for the daytime portion. There's gonna be two separate contracts. There's gonna be a contract for the daytime portion, and there's gonna be a contract for the concert itself. So we're gonna treat the concert like we would a normal concert at King Park. So that's why there's gonna be two separate contracts. Like the daytime portion contract was a rough draft, was generated and sent over to us, so we have a rough draft.
And then bear with me, I'm sorry I'm having so
No,
many
go ahead.
questions. We
No, I
were
mean,
supposed to
it's-
have had a committee hearing on this last Friday that got canceled. So you mentioned the Pride event, and do I understand we're contracting with another vendor to assist in putting that on?
We will be seeking a much smaller contract with somebody who can help us attract talent for the event, performers. But we are basically gonna be managing the lion's share of planning for that event because we don't have a DeJapo to do that for us. And so we have already solicited, you might have seen it on our social media for about a month now. We put out a form where people could apply to either be food vendors or performers. There's gonna be a resource fair, but we are planning the lion's share of that, again, because we don't have an organization like the JAPO to help manage the event.
And what is the budget for that event?
So we will be getting that together soon. Given there are just some costs that can't be accounted for because we are staff doing it as opposed to seeking out the expertise of a vendor, right? So I don't know how we wanna sort of talk, I don't know, it's not gonna be the same expense because much of the labor will be absorbed in our department.
Can you provide council an estimated budget for that in advance of the
Absolutely.
event?
I'm gonna know more about that probably this week.
And I know for the Juneteenth, the 2 prior years, we provided food to residents at no cost. That's not envisioned this year,
It's not.
okay?
Well, there is, in
Oh,
JAPO's
right.
proposal, there are taste stations involved in that as well too, similar to Black History Month. if anybody was at Black History Month, we had vendors from the community part of that were part of that, and so there will be food tastings for the community at no charge.
I don't see where that's part of their proposal. I see food and beverage for artists, staff, green room.
Does it say cooking demonstrations on the one?
I don't see it. I know at one point they described those as part of the vending and tables too.
I don't see.
So,
So if I'm understanding you guys correctly, we have essentially gone over our budget for what was allocated for community events.
I think that is accurate.
All right. Now, and I had a resident after they saw the agenda approaching me about what community-wide event does the city put on of this magnitude with this cost for all of our residents that just isn't. And I want to be careful how I word it or how they approach me, and they were reluctant to, bring up the issue. But, a community-wide event like a homecoming day or something like that. And the only thing that I can think of that's close to that is the safety day that we have in August. Are we looking at some point as having a large community-wide event of this magnitude and this expense?
Councilman, just so that I'm clear, I want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. Are you describing, I just want to make sure that the Juneteenth event isn't being described as making sure it is being described as a community-wide event and not an event for a specific group of people. So if a resident feels that way, that's absolutely not the view they should be taking. This is a community-wide event. My expectation is with any event that anyone is welcome, no matter what their skin color is. My expectation is that we're all celebrating Juneteenth. So if a resident is asking that question, they're looking at it from the wrong lens. Communicating that as some type of special isolated event for one group of people isn't the way to look at this community event at all. Even if it's celebrating the history of a specific culture or something that has happened, it is still a community-wide event. I don't know.
And I'm in 100% agreement. I think though that Ms. Shantz also acknowledged that there might be a challenge in attracting white residents to an event like this. And
I don't know if I would.
And the JAPO had a following. I'm sorry if I misheard that, but so and yet this is a community event. And I think we need to look at having something around Memorial Day or Labor Day or July 4th, or we make our safety day a bigger event.
So
And I'd like to look to you guys to try and budget for that next year. I'm sorry, I went on for too long.
I waived the 1 minute thing just because, like you said, we didn't get to do it in a committee, so I can't chop this, but I am gonna go back to the 1 minute thing in a minute. But the planning, the timing, the idea that we're out of the budget, we're out of the $50,000 budget already and it's May. I mean, I'm just not getting a good feeling about, we spent all that time, going over the budget, like we had all this extra months and we're just not where we should be. Go ahead.
So I think that I heard that aside from some smaller costs, it's going to roughly cost $60,000. Do we happen to know how much last year's event roughly cost?
So again, you're talking to two people who were not employed with the city at that time, and as far as I have not seen the files that.
Is there a way that we can get that?
I can try to find as much information from our department. I want to say it was in the realm of $25,000 to $30,000 last year.
Okay, yeah, I guess hearing that actually concerns me that it's going to cost us twice as much and we're not offering food. You would think that if it's going to cost twice as much, I understand that the labor component is a big portion of that since Samira is no longer here, but still you'd think that you'd be offering at least as much if you're paying twice as much. The other question that I have is regarding the ticketed event. Ideally, I wish that the entire event were open to the public for no cost. But with regard to this ticketed event, it's estimating 1,000 people attending it. Let's say that only 100 people buy tickets. Is there any risk to the city if only 100 people buy tickets? Is there some fixed cost that we're going to have to provide to them that would not be covered if there were fewer people than estimated who buy tickets?
We have no, other than providing our production team on staff to provide the lighting and the sound and different things like that, we do not have any monetary obligations to the concert whatsoever.
So we only have a potential upside, a revenue share with them for that. And so if it's the case that only 100 people buy tickets, then we'll receive some portion of that, but there's no cost risk to us.
Like I said, other than the production costs
Okay.
of our staff
Right.
members, that there is no
Which we
additional
would have
cost.
to provide regardless of the attendance,
Right.
regardless of whether it's 1,000 or 2, that cost is fixed. So, okay, thank you.
All right, I'm gonna move on to resolution 97. This is for first reading only. This is $100,000 for Myers Manor Transitional Living at Imani.
Yes,
Right. Okay, Council Vice President Russell. do you wanna-
it's just a first reading. And so I think we explained it pretty well, the first meeting and what it was for, why we were trying to help out the Myers Manor because of the homelessness of women and children in our community. And that the county had provided them with $250,000 to do that. And if we're talking about our own residents, we should be able to participate and help out as well.
Do you see this as a yearly donation?
No.
So to speak? Yeah, it's a one-time thing?
Yes.
Go ahead.
How did you arrive at the 100,000 and which fund will it come out of?
Well, I did not determine what fund it was gonna come out of. I thought council could collectively together decide what fund they wanted it to come out of. And what was the other question?
How did you set the figure at 100?
Well, I looked at what the county had given them and the number of children and adults that were gonna be, well, I shouldn't say adults, women that were gonna be in that program.
Awesome.
Just a question about their timeline, because I know that, at least my understanding, when they went to the county, there was some timeline for some things they needed to do to get up and started. Is there one attached to this, in terms of anything that they have urgent that they're working on that they specifically want the city to help them do right away? I was just curious.
No, I don't think they asked for anything for the city to do right away. They've reached out to some contractors to get the plan moving. They have also been engaged with another owner at the other building who wants to participate as well. So that's why I'm not rushing this, because the other home is going to be Myers Manor 2. And it's going to be for children and mothers, but children under 4 years old. So they're still working that piece out as far as Myers Manor 1 and Myers Manor 2.
I'm wondering, okay, maybe I thought the timeline they had was tied into something they were doing with the contractor, okay.
Oh, no.
I was just wondering, or a deposit or something.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right, any other questions? All right, 8225, I'm sorry, 81-2025, we're on second readings now, there's several. This is the climate resilience plan. Yes, please, thank you.
Sustainability Coordinator Bouquet presented the Climate Forward and Action Resilience Plan to Municipal Services and Environmental Sustainability Committee on May 16th. All 3 committee members agreed to move the legislation on a committee and back to council for approval.
And I really like that there is something in there to look at all these plastic bags at all the grocery stores and so forth.
Food waste,
That's discouraging. Any questions about this legislation? Second reading?
I just want to say, he did a great presentation at
Yes,
the
he did.
committee meeting. It was very well done.
Very thorough,
Yes.
yes. 82-2025, this is the compensation for the Landmark Commission. Councilman Cobb, did you wanna? You kind of went over this.
Yeah, we did. This is just to go along with the fact that we're starting to compensate the Landmark Commission members for their attendance. And because there was an ordinance that said they shall serve without any compensation, we had to change that provision to allow them to receive the same compensation as we set in the annual salary ordinance.
Thank you. 83-2025, authorizing the mayor to get into an agreement with Lexipol. They're a police department policy management consultant. We've used them before. This is a re-op.
Extension, yeah.
And is there another vendor that does this? I don't know, maybe vendor isn't the right word.
There's no one that provides a service sort of comparable to this, to my knowledge.
Yeah, like a lot of retired cops and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Any questions on this? All right, 84, 2025. This is Council Vice President Russell's ordinance that would require the posting of city contracts. Is it 15 days? I don't have that.
15 days, yes.
15 days.
Mhm.
So not regardless, $7,500 or over.
Over, yes, up to 50,000.
Yeah.
They would have to post it and council will have to be notified of those contracts, what the scope of work.
So just for people here, we have discussed this before. I don't want you to think we're flying through it, but any questions?
And we did amend some of the items in there as well.
Sorry, yeah, that we should not gloss over.
Yeah.
There were 2 or 3 changes. Yeah.
Mhm. Effective date,
So we need somebody to,
Are they?
they're already.
It's red line, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a red line.
but who's gonna do whose legislation is this?
Mine.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just said that. Do you wanna do the?
Sure.
We're gonna have to, amend by substitution, and then we'll vote on the, okay. 87, 2025, this is, agreement with 3D Moore Enterprises LLC, for the storefront renovation of Mayfield and Noble, between Mayfield and Noble and Mayfield and Warrensville.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that sounds funny to say because it's the same street at one point, but so we did talk about that. The 2 owners were actually at the last meeting. Oh, sorry, there you are, right. From, Don't Tell Me, Culture Ultra.
That's correct.
Thank you. Councilman Cobb, did you want to?
Yeah, a question I had the last time this came up was whether you had received any insurance proceeds for the signage,
The damage.
for the signage, the damage to the original signs that were up there?
No,
Okay,
there's no insurance for signage per se. Their initial claim had been denied by the insurance company. And we have been able to work our way through some part of the claim and receive some compensation, but nothing near what the estimated cost of the
all right.
Other questions?
To Claude's point, and I also spoke with his partner and the other gentleman involved, Gerald Moore. And to his point, they ended up fighting to negotiate some settlement, but largely that was eaten up by the immediate sort of demolition, cleanup, and securing the building and didn't ultimately materially change the way he looked at it for city support.
And for me, it makes it much easier to provide you the funding to make you whole for your business and property and beautify that block in the commercial district.
The plan for that space, the entire plaza, will become the crown jewel of Mayfield, trust me.
I like
Thank
that.
you.
And your shrimp and grits are already the crown jewel.
I just wanted to mention I communicated with Brian Anderson regarding the property, and I'm excited because Ryan's confirming that what's gonna happen, it's not just that storefront that will see change, is that the opportunity to improvements to signage, the parking lot, sidewalks, dumpster enclosures, windows, et cetera, that will, as you say, there's the crown jewel.
It's going to be a beautiful space. It'll be the nicest and most recently renovated.
That will take care of the back parking lot?
Well, one part of that
One
does not
piece.
belong to us.
Right.
To the
It
church?
belongs to the Jewish
Oh,
school
temple.
there, and that little easement,
Mhm.
we maintain it, we clean it, we patch it every 4 or 5 months, it seems like, but that property does not belong to us.
Okay, thank you.
Just part of it. There's the part of the lot that is
Right.
it is included in the project.
Mhm.
All right, thank you. And 88/2025 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with 3D Moore Enterprises LLC. So,
The second part.
the second part, sorry, that's right, that's two parcels.
Right.
All right, so let's see, Rhonda. And then we have the consent agenda, LGBTQ plus Pride Month and Gun Violence Awareness Day. We could talk about, if anybody wants to say anything, we could do that out when we're out and about. So that's, yeah, so everybody grab your resolution here. This is a I'm gonna read I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but this is what I'd like everybody to do. Let's talk about it. And if we're so moved, Addie can, make this into let's say we have to do it, but we can make this into a resolution that we pass today if we want to move it there. But it says a resolution condemning anti-Semitism, reaffirming the city's commitment to tolerance, inclusivity, and respect, and expressing solidarity with Jewish residents, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure. And you know what, I am gonna read it. Whereas Cleveland Heights has long been recognized as a diverse and inclusive community enriched by people of various backgrounds, races, faith, and beliefs, whereas Cleveland Heights has had to overcome many obstacles during its 100+ year history to become a diverse and inclusive community, as described in Susie Kaiser's book, Resisting Segregation. Whereas this council and the city of Cleveland Heights are firmly committed to upholding the values of mutual respect, non-discrimination, inclusion, inequity, and the unequivocal rejection of hatred, bigotry, and discrimination in all forms. And whereas our Jewish residents, neighbors, friends, and colleagues are a vital part of the cultural, social, and civic fabric of Cleveland Heights, contributing to its diversity, vibrancy, and history. And whereas recent news reports on Cleveland.com and the Cleveland Jewish News have reported remarks of an anti-Semitic nature, which are alleged to have been made in the presence of an elected public official and an appointed public employee. And whereas anti-Semitism in any form is reprehensible and fundamentally contrary to the values of this community and the principles upon which this country was founded, and must be rejected and combated no matter its form or source. And whereas public officials and those closely associated with them are expected to conduct themselves in a manner that reflects the integrity, accountability, and ethical standards expected by the people they serve. And whereas silence or inaction in the face of prejudice, whether intentional or perceived, can be interpreted as complicity, and it is imperative for public leaders to respond clearly and unequivocally when such concerns arise. And then we get into the now therefore be it resolved. And then there are really four sections to this. The council reaffirms its unwavering commitment to combating anti-Semitism, racism, and all forms of hate speech or discriminatory rhetoric, and reaffirms that this is the position, commitment, and official policy of the city of Cleveland Heights. 2, the council encourages all public officials and community leaders to speak out clearly and without hesitation against anti-Semitism and hate in all its forms, and to affirm the dignity and humanity of all people. 3, that this council and the city of Cleveland Heights stands in solidarity with its Jewish residents of this city and Jewish communities everywhere who may feel vulnerable, unsafe, or unwelcome due to anti-Semitic words or actions. And lastly, that council reaffirms its dedication to promoting inclusion and respect for all communities and encourages residents to unite in building a city where all people can thrive in dignity and peace. Councilman.
I appreciate you drafting this and sending it out.
And let me just say that Councilman Cobb was a big help with this.
I just want to say, I have no issue with supporting and addressing our community. My issue again, and this is feedback that I've received from our residents as well, and I'd love to have a broader conversation, is when we did a resolution for Israel, I came back when things began to bubble up and things happened in Palestine. I was met with silence at the table. And one of the things that's stated here is that silence, you know, is a form of support. And so my question is, I just wanna make sure that as we do this, that we are making room for every other group in this community when something happens or when they feel this way. Because I have no problem supporting my Jewish brothers and sisters, but it seems like this council at least, and many members of this community have wavered when either African Americans have raised issues or even again, like as in the past, our Palestinian brothers and sisters. And so I would like to see us express something that makes it clear that even any form of discrimination or marginalization is absolutely unacceptable. And I don't know if I've seen that. I have felt like another, even at this table and in this community, and others folks have come in and addressed things that they've experienced, and it's been kind of overlooked. But when someone else feels that level of offense, it seems like we're very quick to jump to support. And I just want to make sure that if all are welcome, absolutely, but I want to make sure even in our resolutions that all are seen and all are heard and all are respected. And so I would like to see something that makes sure it addresses even that. And I don't want to, again, continue to raise this up, but there was silence for some time. It took us weeks to even acknowledge anything was happening with some folks in Palestine. And now we're here. And so I just want to make sure that all of our residents feel like we're not just doing this when something happens to one particular group, but that they're all seen and they all feel that way when something comes up that negatively impacts or seen a harm or cause hurt to a community. So anything that we can do to make sure that we're reinforcing that across the board is important for me. One of the things that I spent time this weekend doing, is just having a conversation about that. And that's one of the major feedbacks that I got is just to make sure that everyone has the same amount of representation.
I could hear that. My memory, and I'm gonna call on you in a second, my memory is just that we were trying, on that particular one, we were trying to find the balance within that resolution. And, you know, obviously very sensitive, this is sensitive, I mean, I get that. But I think as we were watching other communities struggle with it even before us, I don't think we were that much different than the other communities in the time we took just to be careful to find that balance. Go
I
ahead.
just want to clarify for anyone who's watching that this council was not silent. And that whenever Councilwoman Larson drafted the resolution, all 7 council members voted in favor of it.
Yeah. But I think Councilman Maddox is talking about the timing issue. And
the silence of the table, when I asked, we wouldn't even have a conversation. That's what I'm alluding to. And anyone in the public can see that there was literally silence when I asked to start the discussion. So I don't want to play games with that and minimize that and offend anyone, especially our Palestinian brothers and sisters who saw that happened. Those are the things I want to address and do that. So please don't dismiss that as if there was a discussion. There was not. I left here in this room and residents stated that with dead silence. It was on the news. It's video recorded. This council said nothing for weeks until Councilman Larson brought that resolution up. But when I asked, I was met with silence, and that cannot be argued. That is a fact. Thank you.
all right, thank you. Oh,
Yeah.
Anything?
Yes, totally.
Yeah, please.
I'm totally in support of this, but I do have some mixed emotions. And I'm gonna be frank, because when a flyer was put out that depicted Mr. Cobbs as an Oreo, me as a bus driver, you as a turkey head, Larson as a reader with a piece of paper, Councilman Petrus as, what were you depicted as? Howdy Doody. There was nothing said.
Yeah.
Not one word. Not even from council. Not even a council member said anything. I spoke about it twice.
I recall.
Twice. And that didn't feel good. So I just want, and this has nothing to do with Palestine, it has nothing to do with Judaism, it has nothing to do with any of that. I just want to make sure that, and I want people to know that I didn't appreciate that at all. I didn't appreciate that from my colleagues, and I didn't appreciate that from the community. Because when we talk about removing everything of hate within our community, we have to mean that. And we need to really put a resolution together that reflects that. So we are not just putting resolutions together for one thing, for another thing. You can have 50 resolutions on hate, We need to have one solid, strong resolution that this won't be tolerated. The mayor said nothing about it. Nothing. But he talks about being Black. He talks about being down for Black people. But he's never said, and I'm really, you could tell I'm really heated with that.
Yeah.
And I still feel that because it still comes back up each time that no one said anything from this council. The mayor didn't say anything, but it was like it didn't happen. Cobb's was hurt behind that. So was Posh. But nobody said anything. So we need to be able to recognize to call it out, no matter who it is, no matter what it is.
Thank you for that. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
All right, I just wanted to bring that to the forefront because that was something that was totally done and placed in the community with flyers.
That's true.
Thank you for bringing it up. I mean, it's not my style, but it hurt me. And that was pretty racist on the part of whoever did that flyer. And I believe it was a Black person because they know how hurtful that is. And you are right, the mayor didn't say a word, and neither did anyone else on this council but you. So whenever anyone wants to try and lecture me about things having to do with race, they need to check their own behavior and their own actions and not be selective about when they're gonna call it out.
Thank you. I'd like to know if we are in agreement to move this forward tonight. Yes.
Just hearing that, and I'm with 100% agreement. Is there any way, I support my Jewish brothers and sisters 100%, but this is something that all weekend long has bubbled up, and we have really not addressed something that's really been bubbling up in the community for about a year or so, where we keep having discussions of racism and discussions about offending groups of people. I really would like us to add something or speak to that or address all of it. I wasn't gonna say much tonight because I made a statement online already in a video, but one of the things that I was gonna tell the public is that we really gotta step out of our silo and really take a look and see each other across that. And I think this resolution can help to do that. But I think I'm in agreement, these resolutions for one group and then one thing, and then one thing, I think it just adds to it. If there's anything we can do to speak to that, to help bring some type of unity to it, I think it would absolutely be helpful. And I wanna say this publicly because this is something that Councilman Cobb and I know the mayor have experienced that I cannot, as a Black man, and just stating that type of rhetoric is hurtful. Being able to have to describe how folks make you think you have to live between two worlds and have those conversations is absolutely difficult and a whole nother level of stress that I cannot imagine in the rooms that he is in and out of. And so if we can speak to anything about any of this to really, again, just reiterate what we stated in terms of all the welcome, I'm open with that. Again, I don't have anything wrong with speaking to this, but I'd like to really speak to the largeness of the circumstances that are kind of leading into all of this and where we are as a community
Well,
in some way.
let's put this on the agenda for June 2nd because this, we have this that we need to move forward if everybody's in agreement. Do we have an agreement about moving this forward? Okay, and then do we have an agreement that we should have a broader discussion on this? But because what we need is something that does cover all these.
Yeah, because it's not about race, because remember, Posh was here and Posh was depicted as a sex offender on that flyer. And a bus driver.
Right.
A lot of those things that was happening, right, because we didn't pass a budget, shouldn't have happened.
Right. And, yeah. Go ahead.
Let's be clear, this resolution isn't about a war that's occurring on the other side of the world.
Correct.
This is a resolution about speech and behavior that directly impacted this city and residents. So it's a false equivalency to say that this resolution has anything to do with the resolution that we have passed previously dealing with the conflict in the Middle East. And if anything, this resolution could be even more blunt and direct
Thank you.
about what happened,
Thank you.
and we've softened it.
That's true, but these are allegations. This is from a news report, and we have to remember that. Go ahead, Councilwoman.
I was gonna say, in our discussion further down the road, there are pieces of this legislation already starting to look at. The council and the city of Clean Heights are firmly committed to upholding values of mutual respect, non-discrimination, inclusion, and equity, and unequivocal rejection of hatred, bigotry, and discrimination in all forms. There are some general statements here that maybe we need to be more specific, but I think it's the foundation for moving forward and having that discussion. I would support this resolution.
Thank you. Any objections to moving it forward? Okay, so I would very much like, again, I give Councilman Cobb a lot of credit because he did work on this as well. Would everybody like to be a co-sponsor that's at the table?
Yes.
Okay, and if you could, all right, thank you for that. So, yes,
Someone going to put it on the agenda.
yeah, please. Yeah, we're gonna need that. We're gonna need to amend the
You
agenda.
want me to-
Yeah. if you
I
would do
still
that.
want it noted that we're gonna work on something stronger.
We are, and we're gonna do that.
Yeah,
We're gonna
that
put that on-
covers everybody, even including what we're doing now, but we want to make it
We're gonna
even
put that
stronger.
on the agenda for June 2nd.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. This was a very important discussion. I'm sorry. Oh, I gotta go back to the. Oh. Okay, so executive session, and so everybody who's not with the city right now, we're gonna actually have you step out, but we're gonna have you come back if you wanna stick around. This will be 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll call you back in the room after the executive session. Go ahead, Councilman Cobb.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session to consider the lease or sale of city-owned real property and to consider confidential information related to the marketing plans, specific business strategy, production techniques, trade secrets, or personal financial statements of an applicant for economic development assistance or for negotiation with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance as necessary to protect the interests of the applicant or the possible investment or expenditure of public funds to be made in connection with the economic development project.
Second.
Cobb,
Aye.
Kuda,
Aye.
Petrus,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Maddox,
Aye.
Russell.
Aye.
Yeah, very good. All right, we are back from executive session. Thank you for those of you watching. We've got a few more items on the agenda, and then we're gonna get out to our regular meeting. You don't have a planning and economic development update, so that's good. Anything for committee reports?
Thank you, Mr. President. During the recent Housing and Building Committee, we reviewed a recent public hearing. And during that meeting, we decided that we wanted to elevate the conversation to the full committee of the whole. So we were talking about the idea that Councilman Maddox brought up about potentially having a public lot where people might be able to, let's say, get a permit to park. And so, like I said, we wanted to elevate it to all of council because I don't think that there was quite of a consensus within the committee about how to proceed with that.
You mean now?
No.
Don't have a,
Well, that's.
are you
I think
elevating it for
what we-
conversation for now?
Yeah, I think that was our intention to have a
Okay.
quick conversation about that.
I was there and I thought it was a good idea, but anybody who wasn't there that might wanna,
I'm simply gonna say, the other reason to bring it back is because it's touching another committee.
Yeah.
I figure any adjustments or changes is gonna absolutely affect the two, so bring it back to the table, just makes sense.
yeah, sure. Who was not there? Was Posh there? I don't remember. Just thinking if anybody missed.
Referring to the public hearing.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah,
Posh wasn't there.
Okay,
And
I mean, that's good.
in our committee, I think that it was Councilman Maddox, Councilwoman Larson, and Councilman Cobb who were at the table and talking amongst ourselves. Like I said, there wasn't quite a consensus. Thought that we would bring it here to see what sort of direction, if any, people might want to take with it.
So that's one piece, right? Because one piece is the food trucks and maybe having a lot where they have permits where they can use the food trucks. But what's the other
Well,
piece as far as people using them in their
And the
driveways?
enforcement part.
Well, I think that this is a broad conversation that covers a lot of things. So for example, we were initially talking about, should there be any changes to zoning that might, for example, allow vehicles with more axles or heavier weight to be parked in a driveway? And then separately, we heard about the idea of maybe in order to accommodate that, rather than loosening the zoning restrictions, maybe we could, have a public lot. So I think that it's open to anything that we might discuss.
So work vehicles, recreational vehicles, like if people had
See, that's the second part I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
like a boat or not a boat, okay,
I mean, we could certainly consider that.
yeah, but how do I mean, like an RV, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I think
Cause there's people that park them and it seems wrong,
Because it's,
you know,
the
like,
other
right?
portion is that maybe you have a lot for some, but a permit's required to park others depending on the size. And so, this is a lot to consider.
I also reached out to the administration because I wanted to see if the mayor happened to have any thoughts on this. My understanding is that maybe he's had some conversations about this idea of a public lot. So I invited him to, our meeting, and any future ones he's welcome at. So I think that that's important as well if we're talking about, potentially creating a lot that we might need to have security around, maybe, a contractor or employee to oversee before creating work for the administration. It seems important that we interface with them and learn, what their thoughts are.
I mean, I just think if it's centrally located and something that maybe was out of the view of, where it's not, I don't know,
I want to bring this up publicly, and I was going to tell you about this. I didn't find out until after the meeting. Someone reached out and stated the city of South Euclid was discussing something similar. I didn't know. I know some of you have relationships with council persons over there. But I thought about it, I'm like, well, what if there was something on the border both cities could serve for commercial use or something? So, but I didn't know. Does anyone know if they're actually having that conversation? I got it from 3 business owners because they were having the same issue, I was told, but that's all I heard.
I've not heard it.
But I figured if they're right on the border and it's something that we're doing and it's something we all have the same problem, from a security standpoint, it actually might help. But I still don't know where you would place something like that.
I mean, the only problem with that is it's not centrally located for, the residents here.
One other thing to add, my sense, and I could be wrong here, I don't want to speak for the others, they could certainly chime in here. My sense was that there was not support for loosening the zoning restrictions around like number of axles or weight of vehicle. But there seemed to be an openness, even from the people who came to the hearing, about potentially exploring this idea of a public lot. So that's what I see as sort of the way forward, but again, we're trying to elevate this to all of council in case other folks have a particular opinion.
We also talked about, from my standpoint, the possibility of having a registry and somebody comes in and pays a nominal amount, $25 a year, gets a sticker on there that's already been investigated by our, whichever department would need to go out and see, what does this look like? And then that person has actually brought it to the city's attention. They haven't tried to avoid anybody noticing it, because that was the biggest problem that people are saying is inconsistently enforced.
Yeah, that was big.
And so how do we get around that? So that was another opportunity.
I'm sorry, one final thing that I'm remembering, Councilman Cobb brought up the consideration, maybe it's the case that the BZA could offer a zoning variance currently to people, and that was something that I was going to reach out to the law department about, so I apologize, I'm just remembering now that came up and that I did not reach out. So that's something to consider, but if there's some sort of guidance on how people would like to move forward, I think that would be helpful.
You also shared one other thing in the meeting, in terms of enforcement. If you just explain why, just based on what you found, why it seemed like it's so uneven across the city, I think that was important.
We have a complaint-based inspection process, and so to someone who is living on Run Street and they have, a vehicle in their driveway and they're cited for a violation, but someone living just the street over is not cited, could be the case that the first person, there was a complaint issued for their vehicle, but not one for the other individual. And so, it may appear as though there's a difference in enforcement when in reality, it's a systematic issue. We have a complaint-based inspection system. So is there any sort of preference for how we proceed?
I'd like you to work with the administration and see if this is something that they think they can do. I mean, that's the next step. Yeah, the public lot, I mean, we have to, probably,
So not
Directors of the mayor,
loosening
directors
the
of-
zoning, the current zoning restrictions, is that what I'm hearing? We should explore the idea of the public lot
I'm
and not
open
the.
to take a look at loosening those as well, because there, just feedback from some residents, there are some commercial vehicles that are the size of minivans and so they're concerned about making sure that they fit in, based on, because there are some folks with commercial vehicles where the plate is just a regular plate, and others where the plate is commercial. So someone's wondering, are you gonna consider my, for instance, children's transportation business minivan a commercial because it's got that plate and I can no longer park it there. So that's why I'm thinking it's also worth looking at that, just based on how some people are registering their vehicles to make sure there's at least clarity on it may not, we may not view it as a commercial vehicle just because the plate says it. Maybe it is by size or so I think looking at that would be helpful. Just for business like that.
I'd like to proceed, we really need to finish up here.
Thank you.
Thank you. HR consultant, so we didn't really kind of get a final answer. I know the mayor said he would meet with Councilman Cobb, but but not with council leadership there. And then the other issue is, now that there's this allegation of an incident, or several incidents of this anti-Semitic stuff. I mean, this is not being investigated, it's being litigated. So I don't know if that's, I don't know if you, I mean, I don't know where that leaves us.
I haven't discussed this with the law director, I would defer to him, but given that we have more than an allegation, I mean, we had the allegations, but we had the formal filing of an EEOC complaint and one with the Ohio Civil Rights Commission. I think it makes it problematic to try and go forward with any HR consultant or try to do any independent investigation while we have litigation or contemplated litigation pending.
But you mean on this particular issue, the anti-Semitism?
Well, I think everything is related.
I see. No, now I see what you're saying. I didn't, okay.
Or it certainly will be related. I mean, he is essentially, in his complaint, argued a hostile environment, I'm assuming a constructive discharge, along with these discriminatory remarks. I think it's all going to become part of one large piece of litigation, and I wouldn't be surprised if we have further litigation that follows.
Is that?
I would tend to agree with where you're headed, Councilman. I think that the existence of that formal legal step, it's not quite litigation yet, but it could be headed in that direction, does complicate the ability of council to engage an HR consultant to look at questions that are core to the charges that happen. And as you said, there could be additional charges.
All right, well, I'll certainly, defer to you on that.
This isn't about that, it's about what we were just discussing over housing committee, it's just an admin thought. Because he's researching this, are we keeping it in housing while we discuss it, or are we just researching to go back in the committee hole? I just want to clarify again where we're
In-house meaning in the committee.
Yeah, in the committee.
Yeah.
We had made a decision to bring it back to you guys, but if we could further research, I didn't know where we would land after that.
I would just do it in the committee, because we're just so.
Okay.
We're really kind of out of time. Could I just, did I email this today? Or Addie emailed it? Okay, we don't need to talk about this right now. I just want to tell you what's happened so far, so that we're all on the same page. The first page is something that basically I came up with. It's about, I'm sorry, I didn't even say what the topic was. The topic is a new, like a revised budget process, because we obviously had a little bit of a rocky road with this last one. And this is for what would be for 2026. I separated what do we want when do we want it? So the what is the bullet points here, the when is the timeline, and then the how do we want it is the second page. This is what Councilwoman Larson put together. I did go over the first page with the mayor, okay? And he was like, yeah, this makes sense. You know, I shouldn't speak for him, but that's my recollection of. We did not go over the second page. So let's just, if it's okay with everybody, now you have it, look it over, let's put it on for next time. The only urgency I have is that if we're making a statement, and I'm not saying we are, but if we are making a statement by saying, you know, let's just say 7 people or the majority of council says, yes, this looks good to me. This is what I think we need to do to improve the budget process. I think that the finance director, the mayor, everybody involved, all the directors really, they need to be, informed that this is something we're saying we want. We are not, we can demand some things in the sense that we have budget authority. But this goes, a little bit beyond that. Go ahead.
I'd like to give a copy of this to Director Hairston,
Oh, yeah, by all means.
since you're involved in that process.
Oh, here, yeah, thank you. But if it's okay with everybody, for now, we'll put this off because it's, okay, so I'm gonna adjourn this meeting at 7:40.